Is your flow set up? Alright.
Yeah.
Opponent ready!
Yes.
I'm ready.
Judge ready?
I affirm the resolution resolves United States efforts to promote democracy in the Middle East are desirable. My value is safety. Safety of the people and the world should be a priority to every government. Democratic freedom promotes peace and reduces conflict. May 2008. Nathan Sharansky argues for the importance of freedom in his book, The Case for Democracy, the Power of Freedom to Overcome Tyranny and Terror. Sharansky states that freedom prevents wars and conflicts among nations and people. He contends that basic clashes and conflicts are rooted in the outcry for freedom. For conflict to occur, the assumption is some form of discrimination or oppression is occurring. Going hand in hand with my value, my criteria is the reduction of human suffering. The entire point in supporting safety is to reduce human suffering, and setting up democracy in the Middle East would put a stop to the rule of oppressive governments which frequently bring harm and suffering to their citizens. In order to clarify certain terms in this case, here are some definitions from the American Heritage Dictionary and dictionary.com. Democracy, the government by the people or their elected representatives. Middle East, an area comprised of the countries of Southwest Asia and Northeast Africa, continuing scene of political turmoil. Autocracy, a form of government in which a country is ruled by a person or group with total power. My first contention is that empirical evidence demonstrates a strong link between autocracies and terror. Lamid 2010. A 2005 Freedom House study went further and found a strong correlation between autocracy and terrorism, noting that between 1999 and 2003, 70% of all deaths from terrorism were caused by terrorists and terrorist groups originating in not free societies, while only 8% of all fatalities were generated by terrorists and terror movements within free societies. In addition to this quantitative difference, the study noted that terrorists from not free societies were even more brutal in their attacks and over twice as lethal as those of their counterparts from free societies. This evidence supports the idea that countries in which rule is not given to the people produce more violence than those that are democratic. A world with less terrorists would be a safer world, promoting my value of safety. Non-free countries were said to have more frequent and more brutal attacks, supporting the idea that promoting democracy would help reduce the amount of human suffering. My second contention is that the fewer rights protected, the higher the levels of terrorism. A 2006 paper on the economics of national security by Harvard's Alberto Abadi attempts to address some of these limitations. He correctly notes that international terrorism represents only a small fraction of the total amount of terrorist activity. According to the MIPT Terrorism Knowledge Base, from 1998 to 2008, only 9.2% of recorded terrorist events were international in nature. Limiting the field to the Middle East reveals a similar percentage of international attacks, 10.1%. To help account for this deficiency, Abadi uses a data set from the International Risk Agency, the World Market Research Center's Global Terrorism Index, that has, as Abadi explains, the advantage of reflecting the total amount of terrorist risk for every country in the world, by considering a number of factors including presence, motivation, efficiency, scale, and prevention of terrorism. While risk ratings do not say much about the perpetrator's country of origin, the fact that they take into account not only international but also domestic terrorist attacks means they provide a more balanced sample. For example, if autocracies are more likely to produce terrorists, we can expect the high risk ratings of repressive dictatorships, like those in Egypt and Saudi Arabia, to be relatively high. Abadi's findings seem to support the existence of a link between authoritarianism and terrorist activity. He observes that over most of the range of the political rights index, lower levels of political rights are associated with higher levels of terrorism. The value of safety is supported by the idea that remedying these problems with democracy would decrease violence in these countries, therefore making people who would be victims safer. Human suffering reduction is also supported by the idea that the people would not only be given the rights that they were robbed of, but also protected from potential attack, both ways to decrease their suffering. My final contention is that there's a democracy deficit in the Middle East, and that is a factor in funding terrorist groups. A multitude of factors, economic, political, cultural, and religious, contribute to Islamic radicalism and terror. However, one important factor, and one that appears to have a strong empirical basis, is the Middle East democracy deficit. Any long-term strategy to combat terrorism should therefore include a vigorous, sustained effort to support democracy and democrats in a region long debilitated by autocracy. Obviously, this is an enormous challenge and shouldn't be taken lightly. However, abandoning such a critical task would mean more of the same. A Middle East that continues to fester is a source of political instability and religious extremism. And in today's world, such instability and the violence that so often results can't be contained. It will spill over and harm America and its allies. If a country gives its people the opportunity to decide what happens to them through democracy, they'll continue to blow, unless these people give They are less likely to become violent and hurt others. These countries are therefore safer than their non-democratic counterparts. Unless these people are given democracy, they'll continue to blow themselves and others up. Decreasing the amount of terror by supporting democracy would support my value of safety by sparing the lives of potential terror victims and potential terrorists. Human suffering is reduced to the fact that no one would have to deal with terrorist attacks, whether a perpetrator or a victim anymore. It's still very possible for us to promote democracy effectively. Despite the diminished credibility of its own political system and the increasing assertiveness of various non-democratic rivals, the United States still has the capacity to contribute in vital ways to democracy's advance in the world. Washington can rely on multiple channels, including strategic backing of democratic allies, applying U.S. pro-democratic diplomacy, and assistance to help democratic actors struggle against dictatorial regimes, supporting shaky democratic governments undertaking reforms, and challenging semi-authoritarian rulers to implement political reforms. Democracy in the Middle East has never been closer than it is now, and if the U.S. would just contribute a little bit more by promoting democracy, we would be able to achieve our goal. Thank you. I'm now open for cross-examination. Oops.
How dare you?
Alright, you're getting the shot. Wait here, we should pause it so we can see how much time there is. Okay. Cross-examination. I paused it, did I? Okay, cross-examination starts now, 6:30.
Okay. Do you find importance in having choices in life, even on a large scale?
Yes, that's why I'm supporting democracy in the Middle East. To give these people in the Middle East choices.
Alright, so you would respect people's rights to make choices.
Exactly, which is just what democracy would do. Allow these people to have the choice to decide what happens to them.
Do you enjoy when people tell you that your opinion is wrong?
No, which is why I'd like to be able to speak out for my opinion, again, through democracy.
Alright. Do you think it's fair to change people's opinion on purpose, or to sway them?
No, but I also don't think it's fair to silence people's opinions.
Alright. Do you think that people in the Middle East are not capable of choosing a political system?
I do not think that they're capable right now, because right now, the only people who are making the choices are the people in charge and not the actual civilians. The civilians are merely following what the leaders in the Middle East are doing.
Well, then how would you explain things such as Libya with rebellions?
Libya, the rebellion in Libya, not only has it severely messed up that country, but it's just an example of people who are not given the right, attempting to choose how things should be done for them. And as right now in Libya, actually the entire country is essentially a war field of people fighting over who owns what area.
Right.
All government set up services have pretty much fallen apart. It's really a bad place because people weren't allowed to decide what happened to them.
Do you enjoy foreign people coming here and promoting communism?
I think that people should be allowed to say what they want. So it wouldn't bother me. While I don't necessarily personally agree with it, it is their own opinion. They should be able to spread their ideas.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to use...
Okay. Your prep time, let's see, at 12:30. So, now! Okay. I guess I'll sit here and watch the clock.
I don't like that because I can break very well.
Hmm.
You're not entertaining though.
It's right there.
No, the other one.
You need a pen?
I don't know what the other pen. Oh, it's in my phone.
Yeah, okay. So now at 9 minutes. Wait.
It's not.
Yo! Oh my Jesus! There's a pencil. Can I have my pen?
Yeah, I'll just...
Okay, at 13 minutes you're done. 13:10. Do you know how long a YouTube video can be?
It depends on your account.
Okay, I guess I'll pause it here at 10 minutes.